Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. And also thank you. Good day to everyone. And thank you so much for tuning in wherever you may be on whichever device or screen you may be tuning in from around the world. We are very excited to be able to share a lot of the knowledge that we've generated over the past couple of years here at Moeco, and then also just in general, having been in the Internet of Things space for well over 10 years at this point now. There's a lot to be had, a lot that has changed, some that hasn't. Just like really excited to be able to have the chance to share that with you, especially now as we enter this new digitized world that we have that's really accelerated things on a faster pace than we ever expected, intended, in some cases ever before as well. But we'll dive into that here shortly as well. So I'm Kyle LeConte. I am the co-founder of Topio Networks and Read Write Labs. So we, on the Read Write Labs side, we're one of the very first Internet of Things accelerators, working with startups all around the world. And today at Topio Networks, we now focus around market intelligence and also data insights on the industry of Industry 4.0. And also I'm a big advisor and also very involved since the early days of Moeco, helping around the strategy and development of where we're going in the Internet of Things and new emerging markets as well. And then I'm also joined by my outstanding co-founder and also our Chief Operating Officer of Moeco, Alexa, as well. And as was teed up in the beginning of the show, I'm going to share a little bit with you of what we've seen in the Internet of Things, how things have developed, and also what you need to know preparing going into the rest of 2020 and well beyond, as many things have shifted. And a lot of this we have been tracking here and want to share it with you, both those that are tuning in from a corporate side and then also those who may be tuning in also as entrepreneurs. And then Alexa will go into one of our use cases and a little bit more about us as Moeco, but talk about how we've applied some of this with corporate partners in real world scenarios as well. And I just want to also tease out there as well, a lot of the data and insights I'm going to be providing today can all be found afterwards. So if you see a lot of images, it seems very dense. Again, we are in a tight time frame as we have just under an hour today. So do not fear, we'll be available afterwards. And because we live this new digital life that we do 24/7, you can always reach out to us either via email or on social media, and we'll be able to share the slides and more insights around the data and use cases as well. So jumping back before we jump forward, so the early days of the Internet of Things. As I said, I've been in the Internet of Things at this point for over 10 years, and remember the days when IoT was first coined as a term, and even before that, when it was just connected devices and wearables, or just this future world that we were heading into. And at that time, I remember the very first statistic that came out that this industry, IoT, as it would later be called, would be worth $5 billion. This was in 2013. Gartner was predicting that this would be a $5 billion market by 2025. Very quickly that changed from 5 billion to more than double digits, to all of a sudden entering very quickly 1 trillion to 4 trillion to $16 trillion, to all of a sudden unquantifiable, realizing that the Internet of Things would touch and be a main component of every industry. Would be applied to us as well. And what we end up seeing was that
Kyle, I just wanted to let you know that your mic keeps going on mute.
Oh, my apologies, everybody. The joys of technology. 1 second, let me see if I can fix that here. All right. Okay. Are we better?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, just switch back to my slide. Again, apologies for the technical difficulties, everybody. All right. So as we mentioned, the Internet of Things touches so much of our lives in so many different ways that it actually got dispersed. It got scattered
as well, which ended up playing a very exciting role, but it kind of diminished the idea of what the IoT was and really just didn't showcase what we all had hyped and thought it would be. And so in 2019, we really dove deep into the trends. Where were things actually at? And here on the left-hand side of the screen, you can actually see trends that we were tracking. That was smart and connected homes, which led into the idea that we would have more devices and speakers in our homes, which I won't name any to avoid any triggering of those, that these new speakers would actually be platforms that we would build new infrastructure on around the elderly or security or sustainability as well. And that would create this new user interface being voice assistants. This new UI would actually help collect data that was once never collected before, leveraging new applications and business models around health, entertainment, fintech, e-commerce, and the like as well. And then at the same time, Edge. Now again, this is 2019. This is less than 8 months ago. Edge was just beginning to enter the IT infrastructure. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Blockchain was starting to become real, wasn't just a conversation in the news, but it was now entering the boardroom. Artificial intelligence was no longer science fiction, but becoming science fact. And then mobility was focused more around just the last mile, whether that was transportation or that was actually delivery. It was still unknown at that time. APAC was leading the world in the industrial Internet of Things, and IoT was starting to become responsible. It was starting to look at how data would be handled from a privacy and a security angle. It was key now in the infrastructure of IT. And then retail was reinvented. And we saw retail start to shift into online and offline, where you began a transaction online, went into the store and finished it offline, that digital to physical realm. And we were starting to collect more data, but what were we going to do with it? And then health. Health we're starting to see this increase of tracking, this rise of consumer health data. Again, what did that all mean? And so now, where are we today? So today, we're in this world that we're looking at a $4 trillion revolution where everything has truly become digitized. I was talking on a panel just a few days ago with experts and investors around the world, about 10 of us, and we had talked about the idea of digitization in our daily lives and how we talk so much about moving into a digital world, both on the corporate and a consumer side, but really in all actuality, we are very much living everything we do in a digital way. We're always connected to screen, whether we're in the workplace or we're at home, we're always connected. Everything we do is online. And so when we look at things from a workplace perspective, we look at the enterprise, that is no different. And we're seeing this huge revolution of digitizing everything in our physical worlds. And this is not science, again, fiction. This is science fact. There are tons of companies out there doing it. We're doing it here at Moeco, but this is also something that is very important throughout the supply chain at every level. And I'm going to break that down in just a moment. But that we're digitizing these physical worlds that we have now so that we can do so much more at so much faster and cheaper in terms of cost as well. And so it begins with the idea of what are these physical devices or assets that we have, and being able to map those and bring them into a digital environment. So the idea of digital twins, right? Physical to digital, a digital representation of a physical asset as well. And then once we do that, now we have all of these digital representations that are also collecting both real-time data, and we can now have automated or intelligent, and in some cases we're going to talk about synthetic data that is generated around it. We can apply models and we can apply intelligence on top of that and on top of those assets to understand what may become real world use cases. And what's super exciting about this and why this is so big is that when you put all these pieces together, take away the 4 trillion and just look at your own enterprise. When you start taking everything physical and bring it into that digital environment. You create this entire digital map of your infrastructure, of your store, whatever it may be. Now, again, you can test how things may work or may not work. You have real world data and you have synthetic or created imaginary data, if you will, on top of that, that can counteract what you're seeing in your day-to-day to understand things in real time, make adjustments, and maybe create new business models, create new products, and also create new scenarios to prepare for if something goes right, or in the more likely case, something goes wrong, and how you can adjust for that. So enter the fourth industrial revolution, or as I like to refer to it, our new digitized world, and how we look at it here in Moeco. In the beginning of 2012, and I showed you the 2019, in the beginning, of 2020, saw a lot happening. And if I gave this presentation in January, it might be slightly different, but now here we are in the second half of 2020, and it's clear that everything we're doing and everything that we see going forward will be and has to be digitized. And so what does that mean in terms of the trends and things you need to prepare for in the enterprise? Well, very simply, I've got 12 things I'm going to go through here real quick. So edge, starting there. And all of these areas right here, these are all technologies that we're tracking, that we're seeing, that are applied throughout many different verticals or industry, whether that be some of you out there or something in the oil and gas, agriculture, utilities, manufacturing. These are all areas that we also focus at in Moeco, but we're seeing these applied in these key industries. And the use cases that they're being applied to all focus within a supply chain, as supply chains have drastically expanded and in some cases contracted as things have shifted over the past couple months. So starting with edge. Edge, again, in 2019, edge was just entering the game around the IT infrastructure for most companies in its latest form. And now we look at edge today and we're seeing it as actually already being jumped over and encompassing so much that we're looking at 5G, and in some cases, some companies like Samsung is actually looking beyond 5G at 6G, the next level of connectivity. And why edge is important is it now actually allows you to provide a connection and leveraging devices almost anywhere. And not just in a connection form, but also compute, storage, all of these key things that we once had to do in a data center or in the cloud, we can now do on micro devices and sensors at so much lower of a cost than we ever could before. So for me, edge is here. The connection has been enabled and we're looking beyond just the idea of what edge was and what it can be and what it is be, whether that's here on the ground, that's the sensors that we're installing, those are our devices, that's the cellular communications around 5 and 6G, all the way to the stars and beyond as we start to see this entire network of low orbiting satellites being released as well. Blockchain. I could talk about this for hours, but I'll spare you those details for the moment. Blockchain is now a part of the technical stack, and I'll give you a few use cases here shortly. But in 2019, it was all about private versus public. What and how does this fit within our infrastructure? And a lot of those questions have now been answered in ways that make this a lot easier and easier to apply within your organization or to your applications. Artificial intelligence is here. It's starting to learn, it's starting to improve. We're starting to see the ingestion of new and again, synthetic data. I just got off a webinar moments before this talking about how data is being looked at and how we're looking at it here at Moeco as well. And again, this new idea of synthetic data where you can create these real world environments and apply that to use cases without actually having to have and collect that data as we once had to. Industrial IoT has changed. It's not just the APAC region that's leading it. It is now something much more global and is being worked on and adjusted for in very specific places around the world. Robotics. This is a very interesting area. Robotics once was referred to as just a robotic arm that picked up a piece and put a piece down. Now we're seeing this applied at scale throughout manufacturing and how perfect these worlds work together. And we're seeing that shift from manufacturing from China that was once so dominant to more areas throughout Southeast Asia to even some cases hyper-localized manufacturing where robots are no longer big, huge industrial robots, but something smaller at scale. And we're seeing those manufacturer centers come to smaller, again, more hyper-localized centers, and leveraging things like 3D printing from foods, believe it or not, all the way to our hard goods. And not only is this happening now, but for the next couple years, we're going to see this actually rapidly accelerate as well. As I've talked to various experts or executives in the industry globally, they're starting to see this as a big coming trend and are starting to test these models, whether it be in Israel, where we're seeing the 3D printing of foods throughout the rest of Europe, or here in the United States as well, as we're starting to see hard goods printed on demand before they are shipped. Digital twins, talked a little bit about this, but I want to throw out a term for you. Digital supply chain twins, DSCT. This is a term that is being coined in the industry right now when we refer back to what we began speaking about in the beginning, and that's mapping the once physical to digital and providing this mapped environment of your entire supply chain, your entire manufacturing, logistics, your entire enterprise. And I know I may sound like I'm speaking very general and broad, but this is happening. And not just here at Moeco, but this is something that's happening throughout organizations on a very globalized scale. And the reason why this is so important, and it sits in the middle of this list, is now when you start to do that at a small and a large scale, as I mentioned, you can add and remove elements. You can test use cases. You can use data, real or synthetic, to train predictive models for maintenance, for future business cases, for new products, which leads into this whole area of predictive analytics that could change your business going forward. Autonomous, everything from vehicles to the industrial Internet of Things. But putting it very bluntly, what's happening right now and going forward, all industries that can be automated will be automated in the next 5 years. That is a blunt statement, and you can hold me to it. We're seeing autonomous from the power that we're getting with data happening at a very ridiculous scale right now. In the next 3 to 5 years, based on the last 60 minutes I just had a conversation for, you're going to see this happen even more aggressively. So mark my words. If you're not thinking about autonomous, you're not thinking about it in your industry, it's coming and it's coming fast. And in the next 5 years, you will miss out and you will be disrupted. So take advantage of that education now and jump in. Logistics. We've talked a little bit about hyper-localization. And this is something we were already on a path towards around localize. It's now been hyper, very accelerated, where we're looking at logistics faster, more localized. Micro distributors have started to pop up, and a great term for you to walk away is dynamic value networks. And this is the idea that all of this, everything from the supply chain to the logistics to the consumer and to the manufacturing, these dynamic value networks are living, breathing things. That everything is focused not just at a global, but a very localized manner, and it can scale and adjust and make moves at any point throughout the entire chain. And we're seeing this also applied at the restaurant industry, which is very important for those that may be working in the food and beverage area as well, with open and ghost kitchens, as we're starting to see the food industry kind of reshape and rethink how those concepts may and are going to be applied or are being applied. Retail. I said retail would be reinvented in 2019. Well, we all know what happened, and it got reinvented once again. It got reinvented and reimagined. We continue the online to offline. We're very focused around online retail, but retail plays, again, back a role into that hyper-localization, micro-distribution centers, and into our supply chains. Not just where goods are going, but also how are they getting to consumers, where retail is actually not just a physical environment you're walking into, but it works as a micro distribution center providing delivery, whether that be in the last mile or a little bit further as well. Immersive. Immersive is coming. We're seeing a lot of news pop up in conversations around AR, or augmented reality, and virtual reality, but it is here, and it's providing these new methods and opportunities, whether it be around training, whether it be around supply chain management. It is starting to enter the workforce in ways that we've always heard about, but now is here. And we've seen this being applied throughout the medical industry, as surgeries are now being done from both an AR and a VR type environment. We had, I think, 3 or 4 major use cases over the past 2 months where spinal surgeries have been actually conducted through both AR and VR based technologies. And I include 2 others. And again, I want to keep voice a part of this conversation. I do see voice continuing to grow as a future trend going forward, but it's kind of been dampened a little bit compared to everything else. And then education. In education, one thing that's been very clear is education. The new classroom is completely virtual, and why that's important for you who are tuning in. So on the enterprise side, that means you now have a new way to train and to engage or immerse your staff in any way, on any technology, on any part, on any supply, on anything, anywhere in the world. And it also allows you to get educated or to tap into resources or look at telepresence. Again, these things are here now for anything you're looking to do. You can access anybody, anytime, anywhere, and be able to get that education applied within your organization. And that leads to a whole new world of collaboration that we're going to see. We'll talk later about data and data privacy and how that gets into it, but just from an education level, the world is definitely opening up. For the entrepreneurs that may be listening and looking to raise capital or looking at how to apply this into the corporate environment, it stays the same. Everything's virtual. It now gives you the ability to do something like we're doing here, or in terms of an employee level, to train, to manage, and also to interact with those around you. So blockchain, as I mentioned, blockchain has arrived. I want to talk about a few use cases. This is a landscape map or view of what's happening in the blockchain industry. There's just over 700 companies here represented globally. I've had the chance to research just around 5,000 different companies to make this little visual happen. It's broken down at infrastructure at the bottom, enterprise in the top right, and top left is consumer. What we've seen happen in the blockchain landscape, why this applies to supply chain, is the infrastructure. That bottom row, the infrastructure has improved. No longer is it about private versus public networks or blockchains. Instead, there is a way to have the best of both worlds, whether it be interoperable or whether that is actually something like some companies are doing called baselining, where you can actually leverage both the public and the private mainnets or blockchains to combine your worlds and your data, getting the best of both infrastructures as well. In the top right, the enterprise, there is a number of companies working within the supply chain, helping to leverage the infrastructure that has been improved upon, including us here at Moeco as well. A few use cases I want to bring out. Kona. Coke One North America just made a major announcement at how they have begun baselining or the idea of creating a Coca-Cola bottling harbor to enable a lower barrier network for those looking to join their bottling supplier network with some of their partners. This provides more insight and more access, not just to the network, but also to the suppliers, to the raw materials, to everything in between that some of their partners may want to succeed as well. We're seeing Google and Microsoft Dynamics getting in this, opening up ERP systems to cross-reference into the blockchain space. We're seeing Mercedes, Volvo, MasterCard, Samsung, Telefonica, Deutsche Telekom, Vodafone, many others who are actually doing this in real world use cases that are running on mainnet or actually running in public environments as well. And again, including us here at Moeco from the Internet of Things side. Edge. I mentioned in the beginning, Edge, the connection has been enabled. Edge is here. We originally, back in 2019, it was just a teaser. It was just the idea that we would push connection out and we would push compute, we would push storage out from the cloud. Well, we've done that, and we've done it at such degree that it's even growing from there. We've brought things down from the cloud and brought that onto sensors and to devices as small as those that are sitting in our hands or pockets or desks today as well. We're more connected now than ever. We have more data, more complex data, and more compute power because of the ability that Edge is bringing down to us. There's over 400 companies here represented in the Edge landscape. And again, all of this is available, and we'll share it with you afterwards as our partners and my company, Topio, for Moeco here, has put these together. We also have this idea, this new concept that's been introduced around low Earth orbital satellite systems, tongue twister. But we do have even more connection now that we're putting satellites like Starlink and other companies that are leading that wave, putting these satellites in space that allow for further connection, further processing as we look towards the stars and well beyond. Cost, thanks to Edge, have come down. More devices, more sensors at a much lower cost price point as well. Power consumption has come down. Software and machine learning, what does that mean? The actual element that we're looking at once we have data, how do we train? How do we create models around this data? How do we create privacy? How do we create security? How do we create new business models? All of that has come down in cost. All of it has rapidly improved and has given life to, like I said, synthetic data and to these new business models. Because now we can deliver connectivity way faster, way cheaper, and way further than we ever could before. We now have the ability to introduce autonomous into this, and we can pull imagery and processing and storage all at a level that we once could not before as well. And with that, I'm going to pause because I threw a lot at you. And again, we'll break this down, and I'm happy to go into some further use cases. But I want to transition now into Alexa's half of the conversation, tell you a little bit more about Moeco and why we've done all this research and we've spent all this time looking at all these trends, is because they play such an impactful role at in supply chains. Supply chains for many years have been looked at as how to get something from manufacturing to a point where someone will purchase it and then get it into their hands and get from their hands into their homes, be used, consumed, and hopefully recycled. Well, now those supply chains have been really exploded upon, and we're looking at it from a bigger, more macro view and diving in at a micro level and seeing how can we improve, how can we optimize, how can we make these predictive models and make this more efficient to save and to make money. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So with that, I'm going to pause. And again, I apologize for throwing so much at you so quickly, but I want to switch over to Alexa and introduce our co-founder and also our Chief Operating Officer, as she's going to share a little bit more about Moeco and what we're doing to really play a major role in everything I just mentioned, and specifically around supply chain and logistics. Alexa.
Thank you, Kyle. I think that was very, very useful, and I hope the audience is now prepared to learn a little bit more of how it is implemented in practice. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of what Moeco is, what is our company doing, and then I will share our experience of implementing IoT into the global company DuPont, which is a corporate partner of Plug and Play. So Moeco is a solution, an IoT solution that combines from different parts, which are all very, very important. And as you know, IoT is a combination of hardware and software. So there's nothing we could eliminate from that. So how it works, the Moeco itself has a value on the platform level. The platform is basically the place where we collect all the data from the physical assets. Of course, what we do with this data is more important, but how we're sourcing the data is also important. I will guide you from bottom up. As you see here, some of the examples of the sensors that we do. We need those sensors to basically collect the data from the physical assets, and we design those sensors. We produce them with the help of our manufacturing partners, and we of course need to transfer the data from the sensors to the platform. So the connection is needed, and here we use both local and global connectivity. Sometimes the products are being shipped locally or globally, and we consider that as well. On the data level, we do analytics, and we reflect the data to the customer in a form of the dashboards. We do all the data orchestration into their existing IT infrastructure, and we connect with most of the most popular ERP systems like SAP or Wonderware, Hexagon. What is important to know while you are, as a customer, implementing IoT solution? The data is the key, as we all know. So it should be secure. It should be protected. So here we pay a lot of attention to the data privacy, and we install the platform on-premise, in cloud as well. But a lot of our clients, as they're big corporate companies, they prefer on-premise deployment, and we provide 100% data ownership by the client. And that is also very important in the case of our clients. We also work in a very unique business model as we concentrate our efforts on the data, and we're a data company. So we operate as a SaaS model, providing the data on the subscription fee. And we do not charge for the sensors, we provide them at net cost. This is very unique about our company. We have the expertise and the big hardware team to design the sensors, but the key is the data. As just Kyle explained, I think that's the key takeaway from this webinar. Would you mind taking the other slide? Yeah, I'm gonna share what we do for logistics specifically, as this webinar is devoted to logistics and supply chain. And our product is concentrated on delivering the value of the data. And in this case, we concentrate on, we focus on conditions monitoring for the products being shipped. Meaning we collect the data about location, vibration, temperature, humidity, light. Sometimes we provide also the secure seal, and this is made in the form of very small sensor stickers, which are like a fingernail, sometimes fingernail size, which makes it really transparent, which makes it very easy to source, to attach to each good, to each product, that's to each shipment. We use, as I said, both local and global connectivity. So the sensor you see here on the right, this is an example of the sensor that would be attached to the shipment. This sensor starts from $1.5, which makes it efficient for smaller goods, for less expensive goods. And also the global tracker that we use here on the left, it includes the global connectivity. That means that you can get the data about the conditions of the shipment in real time. I think that is very unique and very valuable for a lot of clients that we have. And the network coverage for now is for 170 main countries that's our clients are operating in. And the data that is transferred from the sensors to the client is protected, and either, as I said, it is a data logger when the customer receives the data about the shipment later or in real time. The value of it is that it could be so basically the goods could be tracked in real time. And not only the location, as we all know, that is pretty much available with a lot of companies, but the conditions.
I think Alexa is frozen.
Yeah, we may have lost Alexa for just a moment there. Again, the joys of the digitized world we now live in, as some things can happen a little in terms of technical difficulties as well. So we may have Alexa join back here in just a moment. So we'll give her about 60 seconds. But to further on Alexa's point, as she mentioned, we are seeing a lot happening in the logistics space, and that data privacy is something that we take very seriously here, whether that be looking at data on-prem, so on-premise, or that's taking your data into the cloud. And we help bridge those two gaps, but do not touch the data, and make sure that those data points stay within your organization. And as I mentioned earlier, using this data now, you're able to learn more about condition and monitoring. You're looking at predictive maintenance, whether that be for goods in real time that may be moving, shifting around the world, or that's actually goods that are sitting in place as well. So lots, again, is in summary around data, and protecting that data for you as well. And so I'll give Alexa here just another minute, as well, as I know she really wanted to share this use case that we had working with through DuPont, as we did a case study with them recently around smart logistics as well, and talking about global positioning and condition tracking. And so I'll do a little bit of the sharing here, but I know she'll do much better justice if she jumps on with us as well. But to talk a little bit about this use case, DuPont, and also a big shout out to the Plug and Play team for helping to bridge that connection for us, being a part of the program on premise when we were there. So the goal of this project was, look, DuPont, a very large organization, specializes in manufacturing of chemical goods, something that may be very sensitive and would want to keep sensitized in terms of data as well, and what's being monitored or what's not. And so the goal of the project was to actually look at the existing shipment oversight that was lacking transparency, and exposed the company to losses due to potential damage of goods in traffic, violations of compliance through intermediaries. Now, if we're all being honest with ourselves as we're listening here, this is not just a problem for a company like DuPont, it's actually a problem for all companies at DuPont's level and all the way throughout. If you don't think it is, reach out to me afterwards. I would love to hear you prove otherwise. But the point is that we all have issues, and there's ways to solve this. And we looked at this and worked on it with DuPont. And our solution that we came up with was, all right, let's take a look at this and actually track and actually find the access and movement logs around everything that you're doing. Then let's look at all that data and let's put sensors around everything and actually collect where everything's being touched, where everything's being handled, where it's not, so we can find the points of failure. And so we began launching that solution in Q2 2020. So we just recently launched it about 4 months ago. And here it comes back, Alexa, but we launched that solution, and what was the value driven from that solution? So we improved transparency. We started to see near real-time tracking and logging of position through products and shipping conditions of everything throughout their supply chain, which really started to show optimization. So now transparency improved when once it wasn't there. Then the gateway opened up a gateway of more use cases. The pilot saw not only proved our original thesis with DuPont, but we started to see results of new opportunities, new areas, and new use cases that DuPont could expand into due to the data and due to the insights that we are able to provide. And last but not least, customer satisfaction. So DuPont and their customers now had a more satisfactory feeling once the product had left its fulfillment facility into the customer's hand. They now were able to monitor and ensure delivery and ensure that compliance all the way through in a way they hadn't been before. So in summary, what was value that was delivered? Transparency, improved transparency when once it lacked, including efficiency, optimization. We actually saw and discovered more use cases and new products and new business models that DuPont can start to introduce for themselves and services that they can help to provide to their clients. And customer satisfaction, where now we've empowered not just DuPont, the company, but also their customers to be able to see in a transparent way stuff that they had never been able to see before, which means they now have more confidence, not just in DuPont overall, but their processes and their services to make sure that their goods get delivered from point A to point B safely and in compliance as well. And so with that, I know we are short on time. Alexa has joined us back in as well. I think we've got just a few minutes left for Q&A, and I see there's maybe one or two more that have snuck in here, but huge shout out first and foremost to Plug and Play and to the entire team for allowing us the opportunity to share all of these insights and this data with you. Also a big shout out to the Batch team for ours and number 8. Really appreciate all that you provided us and the corporate partners, and to you, our audience that may be tuning in for listening to us today as well. And with that, I'm Kyle and Alexa. We're of Moeco. Feel free to reach out to us on social media, via email. We'd love to continue the conversation, hear from you. And as I said, slides and the data will be provided afterwards as well. So I'll pause there.
Thank you for taking over. I apologize for my internet connection.
No worries.
I'm ready to answer questions though.
Yeah, there are 2 really great questions in the Q&A box. Can you guys both see that, or would you like me to read them to you?
Yeah, let's bring them up. I think you might have to actually ask them. It looks like with my screen share, it's
yeah,
the latest. Can you quantify the value for DuPont? And I can definitely answer that. Save money to the product losses and improved labor productivity. Yes, it is both. From the value perspective, it is saving money on losses or some products that have been shipped to the wrong directions and reached wrong destinations. And also there is an very important added value for their clients to have the transparency of the supply chain, just as Kyle explained. That is all, of course, could be measured, and we're doing that on the regular assessment with DuPont, but unfortunately cannot be disclosed.
So reach out. We love to talk more about how we can do that for your organization as well.
Yeah, easily. I think that IoT solution implementation definitely should be measured. The efficiency should be measured, and we can do that based on our experience and our existing clients.
Great. There is a bit of a lengthy question from Mark, but I think it's a good one. Have you thought about how we, as all of humanity, can use digitization to decarbonize the economy from the grassroots up, despite the paralysis that fossil fuels and their vassals have fostered in government because they are so wealthy? In other words, have you thought about how to use digital to upend the dinosaur stomping on mammals? Mark, would you like to, I don't know if Mark wants to go off mute. If he does, I will go ahead and let him expand, but Kyle, if you have an answer, go for it.
Yes, and Mark, the answer also to your question is yes, short answer. But the longer term answer, I'm happy to give you a little bit more and talk more offline about it. But look, this is a problem, and this is, going back to my slide that we were talking through of all these technologies that are being introduced. The idea of digitization, there is going to be a period of transformation, right, where we are transforming a lot of what we do physically in all areas, whether that's the actual goods, the sensors, the products that we have, to how we travel around the world. There is going to be a period of transition where that is starting to lessen, which will produce a reduction around that footprint as well. And I'm happy to get into specific examples with you offline. It will take me 25 minutes to answer that question online here. But yes, we have thought about it here at Moeco. And yes, I am seeing that from a broader perspective within the industry. And a lot of this all plays into digitization. If we look at the digital twin movement and the idea of, like I said, hyper-localization, when things are more localized, when things are done on a more micro level of that value dynamic network, as we were talking about, that actually reduces that footprint in a very dramatic way. When we're now able to do use cases or predictive analytics, and again, leveraging synthetic data, all in a virtual type space. And again, I know that sounds science fiction, but it is very much science fact. Now you reduce the need for some of the footprint that you may have in a physical environment as well. So I'm giving some teases to the answer, and I apologize, Mark. Reach out to me, Kyle at Moeco, and I'll give you the full answer. But yes, we have thought about it, and yes, it is coming thanks to this accelerated digitization, but it is going to take time. Expect for a 3 to 5 year easy transition between the idea of physical going into digital, and it will probably take even up to 10 years, as some companies will lag behind in that. But there's still some unknowns as how impactful this will be as well. And I won't get into what's happened in the past 6 months and how that's impacted things as well, but it truly is something we are already on our way towards, and we're starting to see it. And I'll just, I guess, add this is you're hearing about how a lot of technology uses a lot of energy, and how that is very impactful in the world of climate and carbon footprint. What we all have to remember is that when new technology is introduced and applied to current use cases, there again is a period of transition towards optimizing, towards efficiency. What we do here at Moeco is make that happen a lot faster. And so when you hear those types of things in the market, whether you're on the entrepreneurial side, the venture side, or the executive side, realize that we're in that period of transition. Technology will come down in cost. Technology will come down in terms of power consumption, and also in terms of efficiency, helping to reduce that footprint and open waves for new energy opportunities as well. But sorry if that's bland. Again, I'm happy to answer that more. Just Kyle at Moeco, and I'll help you out.
Great, thank you, Kyle.
Cool. I think we had one more, or was that it?
We had one more that I think Alexa answered privately, but if there's any more questions, please feel free to. Oh, look, we got one more.
No one popped up. It's like bingo. We just keep seeing a little red dot pop up.
Yeah, no, it's just Mark giving some more feedback on your question. But
awesome.
Yes,
I can't see it, Mark. So I'm just going to assume it's really good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He's just saying sensors for heat and moisture could have helped.
Oh yes,
and that's actually.
If you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
We can.
I remember losing 3 shipments of Chyavanprash from India to America to mold, and if we had had sensors for heat and moisture, we could have at least gotten a handle on that. We simply abandoned the product. But with the sensors for heat and moisture, we could have either have alerted the shippers to provide more protection, or at least gotten compensation for the loss of the shipments. And then
that's the actual idea.
Another shipper.
Yes, correct. You're not the only one who's losing the shipments due to different conditions along the chain, right? So it is really important to monitor it in real time and prevent this for the future, as well as just notifying the receivers that is going to happen. And also we help to manage the relationship with the insurance company when that happens, because we have a proof of when, where, and how it happened. That is also important. That's all about the data, right? So yeah. I feel you. I understand.
In terms of the data, yeah. Also, in terms of that, in terms of theft,
yes.
When I can imagine scenarios, and so the first time someone steals something and gets caught because the GPS kicks off, their friends are going to realize that they need to disable the sensor as soon as possible, or at least block the GPS signal. What are your thoughts about, you know, the scenario as it would play out as you see it?
Yeah, so Alexa, I don't know if you want to take that. I can happily as well. And I think there's a few different ways to look at that. So you've got what we're going to have and what we're starting to see here at Moeco, and then just getting in the broader market is a multi layer redundancy model where you've got just not one sensor, say in your use case there, not one just sensor on the product or in the package, but also a sensor in the delivery mechanism. And that sensor is also shooting information in real time. And so you can actually understand where that was lost and where it was tracked as well. So you're seeing that redundancy model to create and reduce on theft. You know, I think that's something that we all are going to have to start to look at in general, is how do we further manage the security of products as they're in long form transport. Again, when we look at hyper localized transportation or distribution, I think that's actually going to be something that goes down because you're going to know within a shorter radius how things or where things are being delivered as well. And that redundancy model, as data gets faster, as sensors get faster, you're going to see that stuff processed or handled in a much more real-time basis as well. So to be honest, I think it's something that you're going to have a redundancy model in, which is why it's great that sensor costs have come down. You know, the compute power has also increased in that sense as well. And as we're able to transport and actually handle that data a little faster, you're going to know sooner than it happens.
There's another application which is village security in hostilities. So like in Somalia, you know, there and some other places, there would be essentially a different ethnic group would be set up as pirates, and they'd go down and do raids.
Yep.
And if you had sensors, I've often imagined since blockchain first came to my attention, that if you had sensors out on, you know, out along various routes in which through which people could get, through which attackers could reach a village,
yep,
then you could alert people in time to evacuate or prepare to defend.
Yeah, so Mark, I'm going to interrupt because I want to make sure other people have time for questions as well. So, you know, yes, and without getting into any kind of political discussion, as I want to avoid that as much as possible for our listeners, but the technology that we've talked about today and some of the technology that we're working on here at Moeco can help solve problems of those types of natures. We are very much focused on logistics and supply chain, but some of the greater, broader trends that we are seeing can help in those types of environments, whether that's alerts within a city, village, or global perspective, or that's within, going back to the topic of supply chain logistics, within your warehouse and distribution centers as well. And Mark, I'm happy to continue the conversation offline specifically around that topic with you, but I do want to pause and again make sure that the rest of the participants have a chance to ask questions and anything else that maybe anyone wanted to get. But thank you so much for all the questions that you had as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Thank you.
I think we have about 3 minutes left, so we can answer the last question.
Is there one more that came in?
I'm just asking if there's any.
No, there's no more right now. But yeah, if anybody has any final questions or anything, feel free to put them in the Q&A while we have a couple minutes. If not, I'm grateful that Kyle and Alexa both put their contact here. So if you wanted to reach out to them directly, you can. If you want to reach out to me at alexandra@pmptc for the recording or presentation, feel free to do so. Happy to share that with you. And yeah, I think I just want to thank the Moeco team for hosting this webinar for us. I think this was really great, and I think our attendees really appreciate it. So thank you so much for dedicating your time to us. And yeah.
And thank you too as well, Plug and Play and Alexandra. We greatly appreciate the opportunity, and to all the audience that tuned in, thank you for giving your time as well. And if you do have any questions, again, Alexa and I and the rest of the team are available just about 24/7, 365. So we'd love to hear from you. And again, a big thank you to Plug and Play and to the entire team for helping this become possible, and for all the support they've provided us as a company over the years as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alexandra. And I'm pretty responsive, so you can shoot me an email anytime and I'll be happy to answer.